last week. Cascan off.
Yeah.
Good evening, Farmington Hills. Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting for Monday, May 22nd, 2023. If you would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda and you just want to speak, you can come up during public questions and comments. If you want to speak on an item that is on the agenda, please fill out a blue form in the back, and we will call you up when that agenda item is called. We will now start with the roll call.
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Council members Bullaware,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Knoll,
Here.
Massey,
Here.
and Newland.
Here.
And I'll note that Councilmember Bridges is absent.
Okay, and then we also start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like our outstanding city employees who are here in the audience today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Danny, that means you. If you want, sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to tonight's meeting, we had our annual Employee Appreciation Awards and our Employee Service Awards, and we'll be talking about that in a few minutes. But we are so blessed in this community with such wonderful employees, some who have been here, one who's been here for 45 years, and we are just so grateful for all of their hard work, which makes us such an outstanding community. Next on the agenda is the approval of the regular session agenda. Is there anybody who wants to make a motion? Sure. Okay, Dr. Massey?
Madam Mayor, I would move approval of the agenda as published.
Okay.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Massey, seconded by Councilmember Bolaware, that the agenda be approved. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is passed with one absence. Next is the recognition of the 2022 Outstanding Employees and Police Officer and Firefighter of the Year. I will turn this over to the city manager.
Well, this evening, we had an opportunity to recognize our Outstanding Employees of the Year, and certainly wanted to say thank you to all of those employees. This evening in our audience, we have Danny Pierce Hackey, who is our Civilian Employee of the Year. Danny, I don't know if you'd like to get up and say anything. We appreciate that. It's yours.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep this brief. This place, it's an amazing place to work. It's filled with wonderful people who truly care about their community. It is my honor and privilege to come into this office every single day. And really, my job is to make sure that the other employees can do their job. So in the end, they can support you to do whatever you need to do so that you can focus on what's important to you, your families, your lives, your careers, everything. Thank you. I thank you for letting us do this. We serve you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Danny. And this evening, we also recognized our Police Officer of the Year and our Firefighter of the Year. So if unfortunately, they are unable to attend this evening, but would like to at least recognize their outstanding efforts by having our Police Chief and Assistant Fire Chief come forward with a few kind words. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, City Manager. Thank you all for a great evening. It was a great event to recognize the great employees we do have here. Unfortunately, Sergeant Kolchinsky could not make it, but he sends his appreciation like he did at the award ceremony. Rest assured that he's off protecting our citizens and visitors. A little short about him, he started in 2002. He is a paid-on-call sergeant, and he works for Ford Motor Company, and he's been back and forth over the last 21 years, but over the last 21 years, he always found a way to give back to the fire service. So, again, thank you very much for the awards, and Thank you for recognizing our great employees.
On behalf of the Farmington Hills Police Department, I'd like to say thank you to the city, City Manager Metchkin, council, and all of our attendees at tonight's awards ceremony. Officer Baldwin also sends his appreciation to everyone for the recognition of his great work throughout 2022. I would like to take a moment and just restate the significance and the great work that Officer Baldwin did in 2022. Officer Baldwin, during 2022, was responsible for the arrest of 3 individuals that committed a violent armed robbery on one of our citizens, the arrest of an individual or a series of individuals that are responsible for stealing items out of various cars throughout our city. He also responded to a fatal accident where a 3-year-old young man was killed in a crash due to alcohol-related driving. And most notably, he was responsible for taking 6 illegal firearms off of the street during traffic stops and arrests, arresting those individuals and seizing those firearms, getting them off the streets to keep our community and our citizens safe. And again, I want to say thank you to everyone for the recognition and honoring Officer Baldwin on his behalf. But he also, duty calls, he's working tonight, so he'll be reporting for duty again. So thank you all very much.
And before we move on, Danny unfortunately didn't have a full introduction here, and I would like to let everybody know exactly what he does. Okay, I'll tell you from my point of view what he does. He is the technology god, and there are 14 different buildings that he oversees with helping out on technology, including helping run our software system and all of our IT. And during the pandemic, when most of us were having meetings from home, it was his responsibility to get all of the staff competent in Teams and Zoom and all of those things, and trying to help me personally with the fact that I am a Mac user and everything here is PC-based, and I was probably a pain in the neck a very wonderful employee. But his ability to stay up to date on all of the things that he does and all of the software changes around here. And we've been changing a lot of the software that we use for city management, for bill paying, for tracking employee complaints, for tracking citizen complaints and making sure that they're all followed through with. That's very important to us running as a great organization to give you all, the citizens, the services that you deserve. And Danny has been integral in that. Not only that, but he is a Army reservist. You're a lieutenant, correct? A lieutenant in the Army Reserves, and we are so grateful not only to his service for the city, but his service to our country. And I wanted to point that out. And he is married to somebody who made his father very proud. She's a doctor. Even though you guys live in Whitmore Lake and you grew up here, you can always move back. You know, we've got some new houses going in, probably near Inkster Road. They'll be nice ranch houses for a young, growing family. But every one of the employees in this city has been touched by the work that he does, and it's well-deserved to be our Outstanding Employee of the Year.
Yep.
Moving on. God, I'm so lucky. We have such great employees here. It makes my job so easy. We all look so good because of all of our employees here. Next is a proclamation recognizing May 21st through 27th as National Public Works Week. Councilmember Knoll.
Thank you. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and successful communities, such as the city of Farmington Hills. And whereas National Public Works Week recognizes the people who provide and maintain the services collectively known as public works, which are an integral part of the health, safety, high quality of life, and well-being in the everyday lives of Farmington Hills residents. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water supply, sanitary sewers, roadways, public buildings and properties, signage, traffic control, and solid waste collection and recycling. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community all depend upon the effectiveness of public works programs and the vital contributions and daily service of the dedicated and hardworking professionals of the city's Public Services Department and the Division of Public Works. And whereas this year's theme, Connecting the World Through Public Works, illustrates how public works connects all of us through infrastructure and service, enhancing the quality of life for the communities these professionals serve. And whereas National Public Works Week was instituted by the American Public Works Association as a public education campaign designed to call attention to the importance of public works in the lives of present and future generations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Vicki Barnett, Mayor of the City of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 21 through 27, 2023 as National Public Works Week in the City of Farmington Hills, and calls upon all citizens to recognize and acknowledge the vital services provided daily by the city's public works professionals to maintain the high quality of life in Farmington Hills. And we have our DPW Superintendent Derek Schuler here to accept the awards and hopefully say a little bit about your department.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the 33 members of the DPW team, we greatly appreciate your support and providing this essential service to the citizens of Farmington Hills. So thank you.
Please come up and receive your. Next item is a proclamation recognizing June 2nd, 2023 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And this is Councilmember Newland.
Thank you, Mayor. Proclamation National Gun Violence Awareness Day, June 2nd, 2023, recognizing gun safety initiatives in Farmington Hills. Whereas National Gun Violence Awareness Day is celebrated annually on the first Friday in June to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence and declare that we must do more to reduce gun violence in our country. And whereas citizens are encouraged to wear orange, the color worn by hunters and gun violence safety activists on Gun Violence Awareness Day to bring attention to gun deaths, which may take many forms, including suicide, homicide, domestic violence, and unintentional shootings. And whereas the City of Farmington Hills is working to end senseless gun violence with evidence-based solutions and encourages responsible gun ownership that complies with state legislation requiring all handguns to be registered with the police department. And whereas gun safety and firearm security are issues of great concern in our city, and the Farmington Hills Police Department encourages all gun owners to properly secure their firearms and store them in areas not accessible to children. And whereas any adult resident of Farmington Hills may obtain a free gun lock from the police department front lobby, command desk, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, through the city and county-wide gun safety lock giveaway programs. And whereas the city also seeks to protect public safety by acknowledging that mental illness is a strong component of gun violence and encourages those with violent or suicidal thoughts to seek help and find support through the vast network of resources available to our residents, such as Safe Suicide Awareness for Everyone. Now, therefore, be resolved that Vicki Barnett, Mayor of City of Farmington Hills, on behalf of City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2023 as Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of Farmington Hills and call upon our residents to help save lives by taking steps to prevent the tragedy of gun violence and encourage everyone to seek help rather than turn to violence and harm innocent members of our society. And it's going to be Sylvia Gordy to accept.
My name is Sylvia Gordy, and on behalf of our organization and these amazing women and many, many other residents of Farmington Hills, I want to thank Mayor Barnett and City Council members for proclaiming June 2nd as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. As many of you may or may not know, gun violence is now the leading cause of death in children. By making this proclamation, Farmington Hills is joining many other communities in South Oakland County and across the nation to declare that we must do more to reduce gun violence. Our children, teachers, staff, and parents should be able to feel that schools, as well as other public spaces, are safe, and even in their own homes where secure storage of firearms is important. They should be able to learn, grow, and play without fear. On June 2nd, please consider supporting this proclamation by wearing orange, the national color honoring gun violence victims, which originated following the death of Hadiyah Pendleton of Chicago. 1 week after Hadiyah marched in President Obama's second inauguration parade, she was shot and killed on a playground at the age of 15. Hadiyah's childhood friends decided to commemorate her death by wearing orange, her favorite color. The commemoration has gained national support. And thank you again, Mayor and City Council members, for supporting this effort. Wear orange on June 2nd.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is proclamation recognizing May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Day. And Dr. Massey, you have this proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2023. Whereas mental health is important for our individual well-being and vitality, as well as that of our families, communities, and businesses, and whereas younger adults, racial, ethnic minorities, essential workers, and adult caregivers report having disproportionately worse mental health outcomes, increased substance use, and elevated suicidal ideations since the isolation and trauma of COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas 2 in 5 adults report anxiety and depression, and 2 in 5 teens describe experiencing persistent sadness or hopelessness exacerbated by social media, bullying, and gun violence. And whereas drug overdose deaths are near record highs and suicide is the second leading cause of death amongst young people, and whereas mental illness is a biologically based brain disorder that cannot be overcome through willpower and is not related to a person's character or intelligence, and whereas mental health recovery not only benefits the individuals with mental health disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute to our society, but it also enriches the culture of our community life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Vicki Barnett, the mayor of the city of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the City Council, does hereby proclaim May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month and calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to help increase awareness and understanding of mental illness and recognize the need for increased access to mental health care services in order to promote recovery and facilitate full and happy lives. With that, we have from Farmington Safe, Dr. Tara Consolino, and
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is Cy Consolino and Abby Brook. They are the leaders from the Farmington Safe chapter at Farmington High School. Though this is not a coalition or a calling that any of us ever want to be called to do, through pain we find purpose, and with your support, I believe that all of us are making the community a healthier, healed place. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence that we all did not receive?
I do.
Yes, Ms. Bolaware.
Yes. I received 2, in fact, both today. And one is from 28243 Green Willow Street. and it's regarding, there is some work being done by Oakland County Drain Commission, in which the work is, I don't know if it's completed or not, but what has happened is that the streets are caving in certain areas where the repairs were done, and they had inquired to see if those were going to be fixed. I forwarded those over to our city manager and to investigate and get back with that resident or just the information. And the other piece of correspondence was from 29564 Mayfair Drive, in which they had received several, I guess, zoning violation notices and a citation to appear in court. And they reached out because they thought that they were being targeted for various infractions, one after the other. And I forwarded that information as well over to our city manager and to Charmaine to investigate, to give a accounting of exactly, what transpired so that we can reach back out to the resident.
Okay. Anyone else? No one? We'll move on to consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered routine, administrative, or non-controversial by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the items may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration. The consent agenda will now be read by Council Member Pro Tem Randy Bruce.
Thank you. Number 9, recommended adoption of a resolution for election inspector compensation increases effective for the November 7, 2023 general election. Number 10, recommended adoption of a resolution for reimbursement of eligible expenses related to the Oakland County West Nile Virus Fund Program, CMR 52360. Number 11, recommended approval of award of bid for the 2023 overbanding program to Wolverine Seal Coating LLC in an amount not to exceed $176,400 per year with possible extensions, CMR 52361. Number 12, recommended approval of award of bid for the 2023 Joint and Crack Sealing Program to Michigan Joint Sealing Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $94,250 per year with possible extensions, CMR 52362. Number 13, recommended approval of award of bid for enclosed equipment landscape trailer to Kelly & Sons Trailers in the amount of $18,488, CMR 52363. Number 14, recommended approval of award of bid for as-needed plumbing at city facilities to Thomas Lane Plumbing in an estimated amount of $55,000 per year with possible extensions, CMR 52364. Number 15, recommended approval of a bid for the purchase of installation of window treatment shades at the Hawk to Baker Blinds and Visalia Home in an amount not to exceed $18,562.17, CMR 52365. Number 16, recommended approval of purchase and installation of an ADA lift at the Caustic Center with Beraruzini Aquatics in the amount of $13,790, CMR 52366. Number 17, recommended approval of a special event permit for the 12th Annual Cipriano Classic 5K Race to be held on Friday, June 19th, 2023. Number 18, recommended approval of a special event permit for the Farmington Area Juneteenth celebration to be held on Friday, June 16th, 2023, and Monday, June 19th, 2023. Number 19, recommended approval of the 2023 High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area HIDTA Oakland County Subrecipient Agreement, CMR 52367. Number 20, recommended approval of request for employment under Section 10.01A of the City Charter for a DPW seasonal laborer. Number 21, recommended approval of request for employment under Section 10.01A of the City Charter for a Hawk concessions attendant. Number 22, recommended approval of request for employment under Section 10.01A of the City Charter for a camp instructor. And item 23, recommended approval of City Council regular session meeting minutes of May 8th, 2023.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll support. I'll make a motion to approve them as the consent agenda is read.
Okay, that's items number 9 through 23. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve consent agenda items 9 through 23. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Newland, seconded by Councilmember Knoll, to approve the consent agenda items 9 through items 23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmembers Newland,
Yes.
Goloware,
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
Knoll,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
and Mayor Barnett.
Yes. Next on the agenda is public questions and comments. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. My hand will go up at 4 minutes, 30 seconds, so that you know you're coming to an end. If you would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda now, please feel free to come forward to the microphone.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mary Ellen Hoffey, and I'm a member of the Emergency Preparedness Commission, and I'm here to bring you the May tip of the month, which is community preparedness. And much of this we already know, but I'm here just to remind us to think about when we're traveling in our places of work, school, extracurricular activities. We don't ever want to think that there might be an emergency or disaster, but my point is to remind you that it's important to realize if you're separated from loved ones, is there a plan? So for instance, you can review with, like at school or work, if there's a plan for evacuation or where to meet, if they have an AED or an emergency first aid kit. And also, very important is to think about creating an emergency kit for people who are dependent on you, students, elderly. The idea is that this kit, and I know last month we talked about having a sustainable food supply for 3 days, but also, in addition to that, we need at least 3 days of medication, information for medical conditions, ID, a small amount of cash, even a passport. So in the event that you have to leave home quickly and never knowing what might happen, to have such a thing ready. And thank you, Pam Smith, for, this is it's from the Oakland County, great checklist for what to put together. Some folks have a backpack, but the idea of meds, medications, food, and other supplies for at least 3 days to be sustainable. So just to think about it, we hope it never happens, but we read the news, we know it does happen. So thank you. And as community leaders, we should really think about having our own house in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to add one more thing that a lot of people don't think of. If you have any relatives out of town, that's perfect for them to be the meeting phone number if you and your family are separated in a major emergency or catastrophe, so that your family can reach you. Make that a safe number that you all can call that's away from this area. That will be the clearinghouse for all of the calls that come in for your family, so that you can all be easily united. When things are very catastrophic, people get separated from their family and friends, and that's a very good way to be reunited and to pass messages between one another. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Just come on up.
Good evening to the council, to the mayor, to the administrator, to our assistant fire chief and our police chief and everybody else in the audience. I wish they had stuck around for a while. I wanted to just call attention to the fact that it was 2 young guys standing with their moms demand action, understanding the necessity of trying to do something with gun violence. And we talk about passing the baton to our kids, and they were here today. And also to the 2 younger ladies that was with the doctor doing their part at school, being leaders, trying to educate their classmates on suicide and the importance of mental wellness. But we forgot to acknowledge that May is also National Nurses Month. I don't know if we have any nurses in the audience, but we forgot a proclamation for the nurses, and maybe we can get one. It's through May 31st.
We did one 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
Oh, you did?
Yes, that was Mary Newland, our nurse on staff.
Oh,
who-
okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
For 2 years now.
Very, very nice. I just wanted to appeal to the residents in our community. We have a lot of children, and people are driving through the subdivisions very fast. I've had my home in Farmington Hills for 10 years, and I have tried to get speed bumps on my street in my area because my street was originally designed to be a major thoroughfare. And maybe it never happened, but we need to explore the option of speed bumps. Now, I know you guys say, well, we don't want to damage people's cars. The only way your car will get damaged if you speed over that bump, and that's the intent, to make you slow down. The other thing, a lot of residents that have children have started to put those little small kid devices out there in front to say, slow down, small kids. If you see that, please acknowledge it. What we don't want in this city is for someone to hit a child because they're driving too fast, and that parent would have to live with that. And as you can see, I'm all about safety. The other thing I wanted to mention, whenever you hear a siren, people that are driving, understand that someone in public safety, police, fire, or EMS, is trying to get to you, your neighbor, or your loved one. And when you hear that siren, the law requires that you pull over to the right-hand curb and remain stopped until the emergency vehicle has passed. I'm beginning to think that the people that don't do that are probably people that don't live in the community. Because I think most of us know that's what we're supposed to do. And until school is out, you're going to hear me talking about school bus safety. When the lights are flashing yellow, you slow down, be prepared to stop, and proceed with caution. When the pedals are out, the lights are flashing red, it means to come to a complete stop. Do not try to drive around the bus because kids could be crossing in front of that bus. And if you don't know what the rules are, contact the National Safety Transportation and get the rules. Contact your legislators for the law, but we have got to keep these kids safe. We keep talking about all that they have to do to pass the test, to prepare for college, but my God, they have to get to school safe to be able to do all those things that we require of them. So just be mindful of that. And then maybe we need to adopt a week that would just say, be kind to your neighbor week. With all that we're dealing with, this pandemic, gun violence, every day women are dropping like dominoes to the hands of their abusers, boyfriends, husbands. People are being killed. People are waiting out for you in the parking lot. We have to do something about that, but we have to be kind to each other. And if somebody doesn't want you in a relationship, walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. You talked about speed bumps. Can Ms. Mondora we have a Safety E3 program, and you have to follow that in order to get speed bumps, so we'll connect you with staff right now, so you can, and she can fill you in on how to get a neighborhood meeting organized to do that. Anybody else? Hello.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Mayor Barnett, City Council, City of Farmington Hills. I am one of your county commissioners. My name is Gwen Markham. I live in Novi. I originally was on the Novi City Council, and then I have spent 4 years as the Novi County Commissioner. As you know, the districts were changed, and I have picked up half of Farmington Hills as part of my district. I have the western half, and I'm really happy to be here. I don't know as much about Farmington Hills as I do about Novi, but I just wanted to let you know I was here. I was over in Novi where they were doing wear your orange shirt before I came here, and I didn't realize you had a group that was doing that as well. So obviously, you know, anything we can do to reduce gun violence. But please, if you have county business or you have questions for anybody, I will leave my cards. And please contact me if you have any questions or if I can help you in any way. So thanks.
Thank you. I'm forming a list. I'm so glad you're here. I've known Commissioner Markham for a long, long time, and we used to have Marcia Gershenson come all the time, and we've been missing that voice from the county for the last half a year. So, I mean, we're really excited to see you, and I'll need to talk to you about bus routes and road easements. Other than that, we're good.
I'm happy to talk to you. Let me just tell you, the people in Novi are really unhappy with the road commission right now because, as Dennis Kolar, the managing director, said to me last Friday, you are ground zero. So if you're trying to go west of here, go around us. is all I
Yeah,
would
try
say.
getting through Farmington Hills too, yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's not the issue. We just need some right of way, and we need to talk to the smart folks, so.
Yeah, happy
we're
to
good.
talk. Happy to
Okay,
talk.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So if anybody's got any questions, the way that everything was redistricted, everything gets redistricted every 10 years after the census, so that the number of people in a district can be reapportioned. So your state representatives, your state senators, your county commissioners, and US representatives all kind of cycle around with brand-new lines, and it creates some confusion. We've ended up now with 3 state reps, 2 county commissioners, and 2 state senators. So we are very lucky and very well represented both in Pontiac and in the State House. So thank you for coming. Next, anybody else for public questions and comments? Seeing no one, we will now move on to council members and announcements. Anybody have anything? Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please tell Bruce hello for me. The only thing I want to talk about is kind of playing off the May Mental Health Month, and Farmington Safe is hosting another community conversation on June the 7th. June the 7th will be in here, and the topic will be military veterans, their families, and PTSD and how it relates to them reintegrating back into not being in the military. So hope everybody can come out for that. We'll be meeting here. The presentations start at 7 o'clock. Doors will open at 6:30. There'll be resource tables and so forth. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And yes.
Well, again, congratulations out to my commission, which is Families and Youth. They were out for their 5th time painting rocks. You think rocks is not a big deal, that's a big deal. So if you want to go and visit the kindness garden that they have developed over at Heritage Park, it's absolutely gorgeous. So we were out on to the farmer's market replenishing the supply, because as quickly as they paint, they disappear. So go out and check it out.
Okay, thank you. Next is city manager update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, wanted to remind everybody that the Red Cross is hosting a blood drive. That'll be Wednesday, June 14th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Caustic Center. You may schedule an appointment by visiting their website at redcross.org or calling 800-733-2767. And also wanted to remind everybody about the Memorial Day Parade down in downtown Farmington. That begins at 10 a.m. on Memorial Day, Monday. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is public hearing, item number 6, public hearing and consideration of the introduction of an ordinance amending city code, chapter 34, zoning, to amend the official zoning map in order to rezone the property located at 29400 Orchard Lake Road from B4, Planned General Business District, to B3, General Business District. Rezoning request 1-2-23.
Okay. Yeah, a moment here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Eric Pradonic, City Planner, here to briefly introduce rezoning request 1-2-2023. The applicant has submitted a request to rezone an approximately 0.72 acre property at 29400 Orchard Lake Road, which is on the east side of Orchard Lake Road, just south of 13 Mile. And it is the property outlined in blue here on the aerial. They're looking to rezone it from the B4 Plan General Business to B3 General Business. The property is presently developed with a small commercial strip and parking area. At their April 20th, 2023 meeting, following a public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended that council approve the rezoning request, noting that the request would not result in spot zoning as the property abuts a B3 district, that it's consistent with the master plan, and that B3 zoning would generally afford the property with a history of vacancy more flexibility in terms of the permitted uses than the existing B4 zoning does. The action requested this evening is to hold a public hearing and to consider introduction of the amendment, and that's all I have by way of introduction. I will turn it over to the city's planning consultant to get into a little more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Jill Boehm, Giffords Webster, the city's planning consultant. This is a pretty straightforward rezoning application, as was mentioned, from a B4 district to a B3 district. I believe you have in your packets a summary of the list of uses that are permitted in both of those districts. And we would note that the B3 district does allow for more uses. They tend to be more auto-related uses, and that also, they do have a little bit smaller setbacks to Orchard Lake Road, so that may give a little bit more flexibility to this property owner as they're looking to reinvest and potentially redevelop this site. The Planning Commission made those findings in their public hearing and then their recommendation to you. And I think that's pretty much all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, so I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, do you want to ask more questions now, or do you want to hear from the proponent? Proponent? Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Or if you'd like me to do any introduction, I will. The property's had a history of vacancy, and we were willing to put in the time, dollar, and efforts to make something out of it. It's a beautiful corner on 13 in Orchard Lake. We met with the planning department. They were very supportive, very knowledgeable, and very nice. And we look forward to doing something good here.
Okay, so some of the uses you want are not covered under a B4.
Well, we're looking for more versatile uses in our advertisement, plus the ability to build closer to the road, which is consistent with your future master plan instead of being so far back. The main problem with the property is visibility.
Correct.
And if you know the property, it's hard to see it, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Councilmember Knoll.
So I know you probably don't have anyone yet who's leased this site, but obviously you're out there probably marketing it and
Correct.
maybe have some ideas of what you want to use it for. But are you considering actually some adding onto the building in order to kind of move it more forward, closer to Orchard Lake? Because I agree with you, it's not visible from Orchard, it's not that visible from Orchard Lake, it is.
Correct.
And that's makes it more difficult to market. So are you thinking, and you have a pretty decent sized parking lot, so is your idea to extend the building forward, creating thus either more lease space or maybe taking a portion of the building on the north end that's really not visible because it
Right.
kind of sits behind
Right.
another building,
Yeah.
taking a portion of that down, putting parking there, and then bringing the building forward, or what are your thoughts here?
All your ideas are exactly what we're thinking, and we're marketing it. And as soon as we marketed it now, with a pending new zoning, we're getting more activity from different ideas, different uses, different development. So it's still in the air, it's still fresh, it's still brand new, but we hope to have this leased out and performing and a good value to the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Okay, we will
Thank you.
now open the public hearing, and anybody who wants to come forward to talk about this particular piece of property, please do. The public hearing is now open.
Pamela Jarrell. I'm not quite familiar with the B4 zoning. B3 I am. I want to know the reason why they're asking to go from a B4 to a B3, and then if the zoning is approved for this project, will it indicate specifically? I know that in the past, if it's a B3, project may start off as something, but because you have so many things that are encompassed within that B3, some petitioners may decide to change and make it something that was not originally presented. So is the city going to require that they be very specific with the project?
Once the rezoning takes place, any of those uses allowed under the B3 would be available to that property owner to develop the property that way. It's currently an office building. I think it's got a halal. Oh, it's now vacant? Okay, it used to be where Thai Peppers was, yeah. And I think you're looking at possibly some kind of auto mechanic repair, but there's a variety of uses that are not available for this specific zoning that the property is zoned as, but certainly capable and able to fit where the new zoning is. And if you want to know what's in it, I'm sure that the people behind you in the seats over there can fill you in as to the differences between B3 and B4.
And the site plan will still be required? The city will review
No, this is just a
site plan?
straight rezoning. This is not a PUD. This is not a planned unit development. It's just a pure rezoning. And the Planning Commission voted, I believe, 6 or 7-0 to allow the rezoning to take place. It was pretty straightforward.
Now, the Planning Commission in Farmington Hills, is it a recommending body, or do they actually make a decision? Because I thought that most planning commissions were a recommending body, and then they bring it to council, and then council vote
I will
on
turn
it.
that over to the city attorney, but this is just a public hearing right now for you to voice your views.
Okay.
And if you have further questions, we would love to answer them for you. So, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sure. The Planning Commission in Farmington Hills is a recommending body when it comes to rezonings. When it comes to site plans, it does have approval authority and some other matters as well.
Okay. And the Zoning Board of Appeals is a quasi-legislative body as well, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question,
The
ma'am.
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Zoning Board of Appeals handles variances, which could include a use variance, potentially, yes.
Okay, but this is coming through Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public hearing? Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Bring it back to council. Council? Yes.
I'll
Dr.
make a
Bruce.
motion. I would move the introduction of an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 34 zoning to amend the official zoning map in order to rezone the property located at 29,400 Orchard Lake Road from B4 Planned General Business District to B3 General Business District, rezoning request 1/2/2023.
Okay, do we have to give any reasons why? Mr. Attorney?
No, you don't. This would be a legislative action. You're actually it's
Passing
actually
a new
introduction of an ordinance, at this point, rezoning the property.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bruce, seconded by Councilmember Boulware. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Council members Bolaware?
Yes.
Massey?
Yes.
Knoll?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Newland?
Yes.
And Mayor Barnett.
Yes, it passes 6-0 with one absence. Thank you. We wish you all the luck in the world with the property. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is, turn my agenda over. Item number 7, public hearing and consideration of amendment to Planned Unit Development Plan 2, 2023, including revised site plan 59-5-2022, located at 27400 12 Mile Road. Hello.
Good evening. Charmaine Kettler-Schmaltz, Director of Planning and Community Development. We have the amended Plan PUD 2 to 2021, including the revised site plan, as you described. Address would be 27400 12th Mile. I'm going to give you a really brief history of this location. It has expanded over almost 3 years in order to get to this point, beginning with September of 2020, when the Historic District Commission approved a notice to proceed for changes to the site. The last time this body reviewed a plan for this location was in August of 2022. And after that time frame, the proponents determined that they would make a modification to the site with the addition of a transition from townhouses to additional single-family homes proposed for that location. Planning Commission reviewed the revised plans in March, had a public hearing on this in April, and recommended approval of it with a couple of conditions which are in your packet. I'm going to let the planning consultant get a little bit more into detail for this location before we turn it over to the proponent and then public hearing.
All right, so here we have a planned unit development request. And as the City Council is aware, a planned unit development is a development tool that we are able to use in our zoning ordinance to facilitate development or redevelopment of a property that may have some special characteristics. The plan unit development tool lets us offer an applicant or developer some flexibility in the application of our zoning standards such that we can see additional goals realized with a project. So on this project, it is a little over 30 acres, 31 acres, and largely developed. In fact, it's a historic district in the city for a number of years, although for a number of years it's been vacant. So as was mentioned, it's been a couple of years in the process of looking at how this property could be developed with a needed uses and in a way that fits in with its character of the area immediately around it, and to a large extent with the other requirements of the zoning standards. So what the applicant is asking for is for the use of a skilled nursing facility, so a 100-bed skilled nursing facility to be constructed on the south end of the property. Most of the buildings that are existing would be demolished. There was approval granted from the Historic District Commission to do that. The chapel will remain and be connected to this new building. And then on the north end of the property, 51 detached single-family homes will be constructed. The drainage area that is up there in the northwest part of the property will remain. So same with the south end of the property where the trees are located as well. The development project will meet the standards of all the landscape standards, tree removal standards, parking standards. They are asking again for the skilled nursing facility, the use of that. They are asking for a reduction in the front setback from Inkster to 30 feet. And the third one is the, why am I forgetting that? Oh, the density, the 3.6 dwelling units per acre on that 14 acre piece on the north end of the site. The Planning Commission has been, as you've seen in your packet, discussing this for a number of meetings. You've seen it before as well. They have made a favorable recommendation on the PUD. I would remind you that if there is an approval of the PUD by council, that will go back to the Planning Commission for the final details of site plan review as well. One of the considerations that's outstanding and one of the recommendations of the Planning Commission is to have the driveway access on Inkster as well as an additional driveway road on the north end on Cheswick for the residents of the single-family home portion of the development. That does not connect to the skilled nursing portion of the site, so it would only be those 51 homeowners in that area that would have access to that. I think that's about it from me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody, oh yes, Dr. Bruce.
Just out of curiosity, is that cut into Cheswick, that little road there, is that necessary, or why are we putting that road there?
It was necessary by ordinance, and then also for fire and engineering, both had made that condition.
So what specifically is the ordinance for that road? What does the ordinance say, why that road is necessary?
It's the two exits for the number of units that are being proposed there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. For the road on Cheswick, is there any other option to putting a road, an entranceway on Cheswick?
Well, I know that the applicant had proposed a breakaway, like an emergency exit there. But the fire department and engineering, as well as the planning commission, felt that a full road connection was the more appropriate course of action for this. And I think from a planning standpoint, we would recommend that as well, to have 2 entrances into this area, just for public safety. And then looking at where it is on that road, it doesn't seem to be problematic from a visibility standpoint, and also from a volume standpoint. There really aren't that many units that would be accessing that. And then further taking a look at where people might go. If they use that exit to go out, they're probably not going to go west or left into the subdivision because there's really nowhere to go without winding all around. And it's probably more efficient to just go out to Inkster Road. So I think from a planning standpoint, we would say that more people would likely use the Inkster Road drive, but having that option available for if there was something happening on Inkster and they couldn't get out of the neighborhood, to be able to let these folks get out onto another access.
So we're going from townhouses now to single families.
Right, the townhouses were removed.
And they want now a density of 3.6 per acre.
Right, 51 units on 14 acres.
And that is a deviation from the usual, correct?
Correct.
And what is the usual?
I'll have to pull that up on my report.
Because you'll lose a unit.
Is this same builder that's doing the single family as well as the townhouses, or someone different?
No, it's a different operator of that. And they are here and they can speak to those questions too.
But I would like to know what the regular density, what
I'll
the
look it up
deviation
for
is
you.
from.
I'll look it up for you. Are there any other questions?
I do, but I think the developer is probably best suited to answer the question.
Okay.
And my question is I understand the need for 2 egresses because of our ordinance for fire and police access. But I am curious, when this was designed, was there a reason that the developer did not look at putting a second entrance, tying it into the rehab facility, kind of at that jog, I'll call it a jog, and tying it in through the parking lot so that, again, it's more of an emergency exit. The majority of people are going out to Inkster. As you said, there's really nowhere to go in the subdivision. So, people are gonna go out and go north or south on Inkster, but really the secondary ingress egress is just in case of a police and fire emergency and this road is blocked due to an accident and there's a medical emergency. So in that case, it's rarely gonna be used. I'm just curious why the developer didn't look at just tying it into, you already have a large parking lot there and there's a little jog there. Couldn't you tie it in there so that the police and fire could come through the parking lot to get in case of emergency?
I do think that may have been discussed, but it probably is best to let the developer
Yeah, it's
answer that.
my question's more for the developer, I believe.
Good. Any others for me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Dr.
Just to
Bruce.
follow up on my other question. So you said that by ordinance, and since this is a PUD, we're not tied to the ordinance, that because of the number of homes, it requires 2 entrances and exits. What is the number of home breaking point for that second road?
I will look that up for you as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Did you say 30?
She's got to look it up.
No, the developer said 30.
30, okay.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions for our staff, are we ready to hear from the proponent? Okay.
Jim Clark, Robertson Homes, 6905 Telegraph Road, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Thank you very much. I have a brief presentation. Tim Lochran apologizes that he had to send me, and so does Raj. Both were conflicted with other meetings, so you're stuck with me. I have with
Hope to
me
see you.
here tonight Darian Newbecker and Scott Elliott, who represents the evangelical church owners. So let me just get my... So I think some of this has already been said, but it's truly unique times. I've been at this 30 years. I'm here tonight to ask you for less density and more expensive homes. After 2 years of doing this, this is the product type that we were asked to do 2 years ago. The original plan that we brought to you on 7/23 of 2021 was all townhouses and had 156 townhouses. We then brought a plan to you 5/18 of 2022, and that had 94, a mix of 94 units, detached ranch-style condominiums and 3-story townhouses. That plan received full approval from both Planning Commission and Council. We're not making any changes to the nursing home or the the care side of the facility. We are just coming here to you today to ask for 43 less units, to do it as an enclave, detached, age-targeted, ranch-style condominium community. So we want less density, we want to make it an enclave, and we do not want to open up to the backside of a congregate care facility with the ambulances and with all the back-of-house services. So when we were doing townhouses, we were willing to make that connection on that side. I know this isn't going to be popular with your staff. We would do this project without a second entrance. We will do it with a gated entrance. We'll do it in any form or fashion, but we cannot open up to a commercial use on the backside and reduce the number of units from 94 down to 51. So there's some back and forth. The project is referred to and classified, unless it is age restricted, as single-family homes. We're currently building these type of homes in Rochester Hills, in the city of Troy, and in Northville Township. They're age-targeted homes. They're 1,800 square foot homes. They have a first-floor master with a den and an additional room that can be used for an occasional bedroom. We'll let them put a second floor on it, although it doesn't often happen. And I can tell you, after doing this for 30 years, nobody has kids because you're not allowed. There's no plastic play structures allowed in the backyard. They're regulated, age-targeted condominiums. So the traffic studies that we had done show the traffic count for single-family homes going from 770, which is what was approved, down to 543 if it is rated as single-family homes with kids and high school age kids, which we will not get because of the design of the homes. And if we were to age restrict it, which we don't want to do because we don't have to, you would have 334 traffic trips. So we're going from 770 down to 334. And I would agree with the logic that these people are not going to turn onto Cheswick and then turn right on to get out to Inkster. They're going out the Inkster Road exit. That's the way they come and go.
So just a quick question then, because since it is age restricted and
No, he's not age restricted.
I don't want to restrict it.
Oh, it's not.
It's age targeted by design, and as a developer who has done 15 or 20 of these communities, you will not get, we don't prohibit you from having a high school kid, they just don't ever buy. They're very expensive homes.
So what do you think is going to be the target age or the average age of?
55 to 85 to 95.
So we're talking about probably a lot of retired folks?
100%.
100% retired, so their trips are going to be a lot less.
Yes.
Than if this were just a regular community.
Completely.
So we're not really talking then about 51 homes that have a normal amount of activity. We're talking about 51 homes that are pretty much all going to be retired. So that would probably be the equivalent then of less homes.
Yes.
If this were a normal development. So if we were looking at before 30 homes as being the cutoff between 1 or 2 roads, egress, ingress into the development, would you say then that since this is probably 100% retired individuals in here, would that be then realistically closer to about the traffic flow of a 30-home development?
Yes.
Or maybe even less or a little bit more?
Well, it's less than half because it goes from 700, well, we were approved at 70, it's not less than half. It was 543 down to 334. Traffic traffic trips a day according to our traffic consultant.
So then maybe about the equivalent of 25 homes, regular homes.
Something in that
regular
range,
development.
yes.
So therefore, based on that, it doesn't sound then from a practical perspective that that road tie into Cheswick is necessary.
We are agnostic. We have worked very hard with the neighborhood. We think this is the product type that the neighborhood was interested in. They are not two-story houses. They're not monster homes. They're ranch-style houses with, if they get a bedroom upstairs, it fits under the roof. The roof goes up by about 2 feet over a 60-foot distance, so it's not noticeable. And so, the connection is an ordinance, and we were told we had to resubmit with a connection. So we resubmitted with a connection, and planning endorsed it. We feel confident that we can do it with a breakaway. It is, however, a public street, and I've never been prohibited from tying into a public street. Now, I know that's not popular either, but usually if you have a public street, you're allowed as a developer to tie into a public street for access. That wasn't our primary access, so.
Yeah, but what we're talking about here is a lot less traffic flow.
Yes.
Than 51 normal homes. I'm using
Yes, sir.
normal in terms of regular, development.
Yes.
But now we're dealing with 51 basically retirement-type homes.
And we did submit a traffic study, so it's Fleas and Vanderblink, and they detailed what the different trip generations would be. This isn't just Jim Clark making up numbers, which I've done before. It's not this.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember No?
I'm going to go back to my question, because when I suggested the one entrance on Inkster as designed, when I was suggesting a secondary ingress egress, it's only for emergency purposes. So I understand what you're saying, an enclave, they don't want to have a public street tying into a rehab facility. But again, it's not for them to tie in. They have one entrance in and out onto Inkster. It would only be for police and fire in case of an emergency. It's hard to believe that an enclave community of seniors would have that big of a problem, or it would reduce the value of the condos that much, or detached homes that much, if it were just tied in for emergency use only.
So these are all nuanced, and so every day you would drive by the garbage dumpsters, the trucks delivering to the back of Raj's facility, because that's his back of house, and then the employee traffic, so you can't screen an open road. So we are not interested in opening ourselves up to the back of a rehab facility.
Yes,
So
rehab.
we will restrict our access, or we will tie into a public road, or we will go with one entrance. We've built as many as 435 homes off a single entrance in another community. So it can be done. I understand your ordinances, and I'm not looking to skirt the ordinances. I know the neighbors don't want it. But, a couple other points. The average of the resales in the homes behind us, because they're much larger and very nice homes, and there are houses that are certainly more than this per square foot, and there are houses that are less. But if you look at the average, and there haven't been a lot of sales, they're closer to $200 a square foot. We will have to start at a base sales price of $300 a square foot. So we're a smaller house. They cost a whole lot more money. And then they will be optioned up. So they'll be in the $540,000 range. If Farmington Hills is typical of the other 3-4 communities we're working in, as I said to Gary before the meeting, it's the last house before the home. So a lot of those individuals want to get everything right, and they will option $100,000 to $200,000 in additional things. So we are not devaluing the neighborhood. We're asking for 94 were approved. We're asking to go down to 51. And I have to make it an enclave to reduce density by 43 units. I have to make it feel safe. I have to make it luxurious, and I have to make it nice. And I do not want to, and with all due respect, open up to the back side of a facility.
Trying to save you money.
I know,
It would
listen,
actually
thank you.
save money not having
Yes,
to open
thank
it
you.
up to Cheswick.
So
And just put, and have a gate, so
Yes.
it's restricted.
So
To
I
the-
don't,
To that, like with a little teeny stub road, kind of tying it into that other road. And then with large evergreens on the side of the road, the stub road, tying it in. But, okay, just trying to save money.
Tim would be miserable if I didn't at least go through, so, you know, this is,
Any other questions? I have, my dad was a contractor developer, Whittier Construction, way back in the day.
I know the name.
And it seems to me that by getting rid of the townhouses in the front on Inkster, you're going to put in a sidewalk, so that alleviates the problem of children at bus stops without having a place to stand. You want to, I'm guessing that from Unit 51 around to 18, you're going to heavily landscape that bridge area.
yes.
I'm also assuming that the floodplain that is going to remain empty and as a wetlands when it fills up will separate this particular enclave that you're building with heavy vegetation between the homeowners that are currently there and this enclave that you want to create in this general area. I believe we need to have 2 road entrances. And this is not, in my opinion, unusual. We did this with Trillium. So when you go into the first condo development off of Drake, I forgot what it's called, do you know?
Oxford Estates.
Oxford Estates. You see a sign for Oxford Estates, and then further down the road, you see the sign for Trillium. And this same road situation with tying into a street that was already there happened when the development that's there now went in, and you should have seen this place, guys. You have no idea how many people did not want you to connect to Weymouth Road. That was like the worst thing that could ever happen. But I doubt many of you use Weymouth, correct? You use Weymouth all the time. So they were right. You came in and started using their road. I'm just saying that that was a real problem, and they wanted it closed down and that it shouldn't be open to your development for you to use Weymouth. So we get these rolling things as new developments come along, and I like the idea of getting rid of the townhouses, making it easier on the sight line by having them lower so it doesn't obstruct your view, and then blending it in with the townhouses, the condominiums that are across the street that are 1 and 1.5 stories. So I like what you've done so far. I understand why you want to do it, and now I kind of want to hear from the residents.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here for questions.
Okay. So, do you guys mind if I open the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing right now. Oh, yes?
Can I just follow up with the answer to those 2 questions?
Yes.
Okay, so the question about the density, the R1B AB district allows 1.86 units per acre. So on the 14 acres site, we would have about 26 homes. So this is about double that. And then in terms of the access, the ordinance has specific standards about the length of roads and the need for turnarounds and or cul-de-sacs. And so the observation of the city engineer as well as the fire department was that this might not be capable of accommodating that exit or that access without an additional drive. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on Cheswick, but there could be some other alternatives based on the layout. That's how this is working out to this point. But the standards are related, and they're outside of the zoning ordinance in the general code related to streets.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I'm going to first read in 2 emails that I received. One was from Keith Hudson, and he does not want us tying this development into Cheswick, so he is a no. And then Ron Hughes is also a no, and he sent us a map. I don't know if you guys saw it, with all of the entrances on Inkster, but he was using the map based on the fact that we had the townhouses there, which we don't. So that's the only problem with that, because you'd be driving through a house. But I appreciate the hard work that was done on that. Are you Mr. Hughes? Yes. Thank you for sending that. I wanted to point out that you did do some creativity and thinking and mapping, and I appreciate it. So, and then we received a please let them do what they need to do and use Cheswick. And this is from EHM Senior Solutions, the owner of the former Sarah Fisher property. Okay, so public hearing open. If you want to come forward, come on up, make a line. Please keep your comments as short as possible. And if you just want to come forward and give us your name and your street and say ditto, yes or no, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council persons. My name is Jeff Dawkins. I'm the president of the Hickory Oaks Association. And I'll be the first to say we'd like not to have the road. We've developed that road for the last 20 years, as you've seen. It's very well developed. It's pleasant. And I agree with some of the comments that I heard earlier that it doesn't seem to be needed. So I would vote that we not have that road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Scott Lawrence. I live on Broadmoor Court, which is adjacent to the proposed development. I think I'm going to speak for everyone here that says that we're very happy with the work that the developer has done to get to this point. We have no issues with the care facility to the south. It's more the housing development. I think I can speak for just about everyone here. What we say, we agree that there's no need to be on an entrance on Cheswick. They can still route it with they can landscape it, they can put bollards, so they could still keep their exclusive enclave, but having that second entrance through the care facility. It's really a big part of its safety issue. There's a bus stop that, as far as what the person said, that there's no loss of sight. There is very limited sight. It's a narrow road. It's very windy. It has a large slope to it, so you can't see. And as far as folks cutting through the neighborhood, with all the construction, there's been people who don't even live in either our neighborhood or the old neighborhood that cut through, because 12 Mile is bumper to bumper. Inkster is closed right now as we speak south of 12 Mile. People cut through that to get to Middle Belt, to get to 13 Mile. So it does see the traffic, and this would just make the situation worse. And then the other thing, by approving this plan with making the cut through Cheswick, there's a very real possibility that it will decrease our property value. This could potentially amount to a constructive taking on the part of Farmington Hills if they proceed with this. In conclusion, me personally, I very much am in favor of having the second entrance through onto Inkster, either that or not only having the one entrance. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. I heard a legal term, constructive taking. Mr. Attorney, sir.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure exactly what the gentleman meant by when he said constructive taking. It does have a legal connotation in connection sometimes with what's called regulatory takings, where by way of a regulation you have taken a person's property without just compensation. There have been literally volumes of court cases written on that subject. I'm not sure if that was an indication of an intent to bring some sort of a legal action on that grounds. I would have to do a pretty thorough research of that issue as it pertains to this scenario. I can't say I've heard of a scenario where an access onto a public road that is public right-of-way, and will be another access onto that road amounts to a constructive takings of somebody else's property on that road. But like I said, there are volumes of case law on this, so I suppose anything is possible.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Mr. Hughes.
Hello, how are you all?
Fine.
Esteemed council members. I wanted to highlight some of what I had in the email. Hopefully you all had a chance to see it and read it. There are a number of issues with putting an entrance off of Cheswick. There are 4 blind spots. They are very distinctive because there is elevation change as you're doing the curves coming up the hill or down the hill for that matter. A lot of what you see here in the images, I assume this is from the developer, there's been some significant creative license taken there. Cheswick bends and winds a lot more than what's shown here in these images, so it creates some significant blind spots. Moving an entrance, I understand the need to have 2 entrances to the subdivision, I get it, but I think it would be better served to have the second entrance onto Inkster, and that being because you have better sight line to avoid incidents, traffic problems related. Because you have sight to oncoming traffic, potential interaction with people should be down than it would be on Cheswick. Cheswick has a lot of walkers. We have dog walkers, people walkers, and there's a school bus stop there at the end of Cheswick and Inkster. So there's a lot of potential for people interaction with vehicles, and if we have that entrance there off of Cheswick, you will increase that opportunity. So that's why I'm suggesting that the second entrance be on Inkster as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm sorry?
Hello, sir.
Oh, hello. Madam Mayor and City Council, my name is Sorrell Weems. I live at 29149 Bradmore Court, basically at the end of the cul-de-sac inside of Hickory Oaks. I will start with, I am not in favor of the entrance, the exit from this subdivision, but I will say this. We are in support of the development, right? We've seen the documentation. We saw the density decrease. We saw the go from multiple or multifamily use down to single family use, which is a plus. We also saw the traffic volumes go down, which is a plus, only for Inkster. Those traffic counts are only based on what happens on Inkster. It can't include what happens on Cheswick. So it doesn't take the current volumes at all for what's happening on Cheswick. Just be clear about that one. So the thing that I heard, I'm just cover a couple things I heard while people were talking, is that there is not a safety issue. I disagree with that. There's a bus stop for elementary and middle school and high school students right on that corner. We typically have to line our cars on that road in order to keep traffic slowing down, so with our flashers on each morning, just to allow our kids to board those buses. So if that entrance is there, now we lose that buffer from the end of the street to where there is no entrance to allow our students to board those buses. We have a lot of families in the area. So there is a safety issue there. I heard there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission to make that exit on Cheswick. I don't know if that's 100% true, that the Planning Commission made that recommendation, because I've seen previous plans that had that connection that I think Councilwoman, if I say this correctly, No, I'm sorry. That you mentioned the connection from the parking lot into the proposed development. There is a document that shows that connection there, right? So if that developer can give that to you, then you can see how it already works. The good part there is that's designed. So if that is a rehab facility, it's designed for those type of vehicles. So ambulances, fire vehicles, all that is already the right-of-ways, the width of the roads, the parking areas, the turnarounds. It's currently designed for them to come into that parking lot and to get out of that parking lot. So now you make the connection, they go into the subdivision when needed, and they come out and they can go the same way. So it's already in their plans. That connection needs to be made. There is also a talk about the egress for the ordinance and the two egresses in that ordinance. So if that's the case, right, it is that there needs to be two egresses. It doesn't necessarily have to be on Cheswick. We can be achieved by the one on Inkster that's currently there. We're not looking for the developer to change any of his current plans. So any of the plans related to the housing layout, the setbacks, the sidewalks, none of that changes. It's only about that access to Cheswick. Lastly, well, not necessarily lastly, but a few items here. It is the perfect location for it. The other portion is that the turn radius is for the emergency vehicles on Cheswick. So that's a WB40 or a WB50, which is basically the, I'll call it the transportation classification for those large vehicles, fire engines, the whole deal. That requires a large radius turn, which means if you were to come off of Cheswick and make that turn, that means the tree line that we currently have that down that road has a minimum of 3 trees just for that turnaround. Then you're going to have the MDOT, right, the line of sight requirements where if you look down, you need to be able to see traffic coming from one way or the other. That means those trees have to be removed. So now you're basically changing the whole line of sight, the whole design of that road just for one road that's not necessarily required when there's a secondary access. So if the developer can please help us understand why they can't make that connection. It's already been done before in their plans. They currently they had plans to do that, and now it's not there. So again, I just want to say this is that we're not in disagreement with the overall development. We just need to preserve that for a lot of reasons, not just for look and feel, right? And there was also a statement made about that certain demographics, the senior community can afford certain houses. We currently live in there. I'm under 50 years old, and I live in those houses behind there, so I can afford the same house that he's saying that will only sell to seniors, right? So we can't guarantee that that's going to be senior-onlys living in those homes. Yeah, maybe a high school student can't pay for those, but the community that I work in, the folks that I'm around, will find those houses very attractive. I've actually heard some of the folks that live in our community that are looking to downsize may move to that community as well. So it's not unheard of that we're only going to be, and then that would be housing discrimination as well, correct? If they would only offer it to seniors. So we need to make sure we're taking all that into account, but the focus here is safety, which is on that corner. It's not required because there's also an access. There's currently designed to pick up the vehicles that we're talking about, and then at the same time, they can still keep the same number of units, the same layout they have. We're not against that. Thank you.
Before you go.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. Are you saying that the grade of Cheswick is such that if somebody was coming out of this development onto Cheswick to go out to Inkster, you would not be able to see them, and that would create a danger?
Not necessarily the folks on Cheswick. It would be the folks coming out of the development.
Right, that the grade is such
It's the
that
grade
coming
and line
out
of
of the
sight.
development.
Yes, ma'am. It's two things. It's one grade because the road winds and it's low, and then there's a tree line. Our trees are massive, and they line that whole road, so you can't see, I would say 30 feet. If that road comes around, you can't see a car before it gets to you. So I think that MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation, would force us to cut down those additional trees in order to have a clear line of sight for you to see traffic coming down that road.
No, I'd probably just put up a sign that says blind driveway or something. But yeah, I see your point.
Interesting.
Okay, so no, it's okay. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people. So I can let you go, and then I'm just going to toss this out to the developer. Can you lose 51 and move it near between 19 and 28?
I'm sorry. Okay, we're not asking to change the number of homes. We just want to make sure it's safe for us.
I just want to. I wanted to show the.
I know I'm not
Here we go.
exactly following open public hearing, but I'll get to you all in a minute.
I think anything's possible. We've been at this for over 3 years, and this is our proposal. We're approved for 94 units. I think the trade-off today is, do we do what's approved, or do we go forward with this? And those aren't threats, but we have a townhouse approved. We think this is a better application. We think it's a more desirable enclave community, but we can't delete more units and make the economics work.
I don't want you to delete a unit. I want you to move it.
What am I moving it?
You're going to move it between 28 and 19. You may have to reorient the driveway.
I don't have the numbered one on the screen.
Actually, your previous slide had it.
All right, so,
Well, they can move 19.
are you saying to make a connection to the back of the care? What is the purpose in moving the unit?
That would then be a road out to Inkster.
Okay, the second road out to Inkster. I don't know if that meets, I don't know if we'll have site distance or we'll have conflicts with the entrance into the assisted living facility with a drive that close. So that's an engineering question. I don't know if I don't know if I can put drives that close. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just trying to make everybody happy. Because that's what I love to do.
That's here.
Okay, back to the public hearing. Sorry about that little digression.
Good
Hello.
evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Linda Roberts. I live on Bradmore Court. I am a walker, and I would hate to see access to Cheswick because we already get traffic from Wood Creek. It was stated earlier that when Weymouth was opened, we went into the creek.
Creek, right.
It was the opposite. And there are a lot of cars now because of construction who know the route to come through. Some of them move a little faster. And I would just like to keep our roads safe, also for children. In the morning, yes, parents line up to drop their kids off, but in the afternoon, those same children walk Cheswick home. And if you have more traffic, it becomes more dangerous.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hello, Ms. Weems.
Hello. Hi, I'm Mrs. Terry Weems. Thank you for having us, having this public hearing. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council persons. I am not in favor of the entrance. I am in favor of the development. I think we all are. We've spent a lot of time talking about this back and forth. This access point is a real issue for me for a couple of reasons. I think it would be awful. I think the traffic would be terrible. We talked about our development that came about 20 years ago and how Wood Creek did not want that access point. I understand why, because it did increase traffic significantly. Not only do we get traffic from Wood Creek and Wood Creek gets traffic from Hickory Oaks, but we get a lot more traffic from everywhere else in Farmington as they cut through to get to Wood Creek, to get to 13 Mile, to get to Middle Belt, to get to Inkster, to go around 12 Mile, all of that will increase. And I think that an access point from Cheswick is going to increase traffic, and it's going to create some safety implications for our children and our adults who walk. It's dark in the morning. There are no street lights, and there's no sidewalk down Cheswick. We would lose our ability to park with our flashers and keep our kids safe in the morning in the dark, and our kids coming home would be susceptible to a lot more traffic and people flying down that road. I heard this woman talk about how, unsafe it is to walk because of all of the traffic, and our streets don't have sidewalks. I sent each of you a picture and a video of our windy street. I don't think you can appreciate, unless you've seen it yourself, the significant curves of that street and the decline in the street. Every time I drive, I'm surprised and shocked and a little scared because somebody's coming down that I can't see when I'm going up the hill. That's going to be exacerbated by creating an access point there. And like my husband said, those trees are gorgeous. I don't want to exaggerate, but they're like 40 feet tall. They're extremely mature, and we're going to lose half of our street because you're going to have to cut down more than a couple trees to create that street and to be able to create sight lines. every person in our subdivision bought our home because of that street. And to say that it's not going to impact our property values, I think would be, it's a false statement. It's not an opinion, it is a fact. It will decrease our property values. And I find it a little bit, I'm annoyed, frankly, at the thought that, oh, well, when we had 94 units, it was okay for us to have the second access point to the facility, but now that we've got 51, we don't want to do that. Instead, we'd like to cut into the $1 million home neighborhood and have an access point there. That makes no sense to me. And I would ask you not to favor a new development. I'd like for you to consider the residents that have been here for 20 years, paying taxes for 20 years, and who will continue to pay taxes for the next 20 years in an amount in excess of the 51 homes that are being built. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I'm Jim Flezar, and I also live on Bradmore Court. Again, echoing what many of my neighbors have said, we've seen this development really progress over the time where we started to where it is now. We're all very happy with that. Although, so for the development, yes, happy. For the second entrance here off Cheswick, no. That, again, for a lot of the reasons that were just mentioned before you, and many of them center around safety. When you look at the grade, when you look at where you'd be cutting in, how the vehicles would negotiate that turn, you'd have to, again, take out a significant amount of the trees, and that entrance is, as it was said, is one of the first things when we came into this neighborhood and we looked at the house, and one of the wow factors that we fell in love with the neighborhood. There are other alternatives that were discussed today. We very much would like everybody to consider those and looking at how you can leverage the other community. It was brought up that other community for the rehab facility already was designed to handle emergency vehicles so that you can make the turns. I challenge you to the proposal that's coming down Cheswick, how could a fire truck negotiate that turn? You'd have to significantly widen it and take out yet more trees, which is not acceptable. So again, thank you for your time. I'm definitely, my wife and I are definitely against that entrance off of Cheswick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm Mike Roberts, orthopedic surgeon. I'm on Bradmore Court also. I'm gonna give you the medical aspect. There are, as my fellow resident said, there's blind spots, there's a lot of curvature. With more cars, the more possibility of a tragedy. As we talk about the children, that's where they drop off, that's where they come in. And I hear about the retirement, but they have children who visit, they have grandchildren who visit, and it's just eventually somebody's gonna get hit. And when you have a 3,000-pound car striking an 80-pound child, I've seen the effects. That's all I have to say. I'm definitely against it.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Scott Griffin. Can you put the site plan back up on here? And I just wanted to make sure that you got all of our emails, because you said you got 2, but I know we sent several. Did you get one from me?
I may have, but I didn't flag it for this meeting.
Okay.
I'm not,
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that you
I
had a
already
chance to
told you
read it.
that Danny is my tech guy. you
Okay,
know.
okay. So one of the things that I said was that we had a number of questions for the Planning Commission, and not one person on the Planning Commission could answer one question that we asked. All the questions were significant in being able to determine whether or not this made sense. I do want to say that Robertson Brothers has been great to work with. the way this development has changed over the 3 or 4 years, and thank you to you, because the city council is a big reason as to why that's happened. But every step of the way, they said, we can't do less than 150 units. We can't do less than 91 units. We can't do without the townhouses. It's not economically viable. So I hear them again saying that, and I'm not disagreeing with them. I'm just saying that there are other alternatives. And if you look at the plan, so their concern is how it will look looking into the back of the convalescent center. But you can see all the open area. I don't know if there's another TV you can see, but all the open area between the units where it would tie into the back. And interestingly, that road that runs all the way around the back is specifically for service vehicles. So it's wide enough, the turns are there. Even if they gave up a couple of parking spaces, they're overparked as it is in the convalescent center. So it's easy to do there and hide it with landscaping, very easy to do. It's also easy to do out to Inkster, as you suggested, Mayor, and just move a unit, not lose any movements. We've tried to work with them on this issue and say, we think we can get you 1 or 2 more units because we love what they're trying to do. We just absolutely do not want it coming out on Cheswick. I won't repeat all the reasons, but I will speak to one thing, Mr. Bruce, that you said about the fact that 100% of the people will be retired. Number one, no one knows that. And number two, it's highly unlikely that 100% of people will be retired. And that 51 units really is only 25 units. We don't know that. I will tell you that a number of people in Hickory Oaks are retired, and that, so say that's 25 instead of 37. The impact will be double the traffic there as it is now, no matter how you want to calculate it or skew it. The other thing is, if you look at where those houses would go out onto Inkster Road, if anybody did go out into Cheswick, they're not going to go out into Inkster. They would just take their interior road. They're going to go west for sure. And so that's through the sub, more traffic through the sub. I'm sure we're a pain to Wood Creek. Wood Creek's a pain to us. We have the police out 2 or 3 times a year to do speed traps there because the traffic just comes flying through. It is a safety issue. I just beg you, there are better alternatives than this. And all of us bought that in that subdivision because of that entrance drive. Go.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? You okay, Scott?
Yep, no, I have a bad ankle. Scott Elliott.
They didn't beat you up before you got in here, did they? Okay.
Scott Elliott, and I'm a 36-year resident of Farmington Hills.
And he really wants commission on this property.
I am also the listing broker for this project. And I would like to say it's taken a long time to get to this point. There's no doubt about it. It's been a real challenge. And the developer has listened very, very carefully to the residents of this neighborhood, and they have bent over backwards to make it work. I will take a counter perspective. This will enhance the values of the neighborhood. They are living next to a rundown, dilapidated project that's in poor condition. It was just broken into again last week. And EHM, the owners of the property, they very much want to see this sold so they can be done with the responsibility and the liability of it. That is a danger that the residents may overlook, that crime is taking place just, a few hundred yards from where they live. So this is a quality development. I understand the concerns with Cheswick Drive. I think something can be worked out there. I don't think it's that big of an issue. This is a low traffic exit that's going to go out of there. It's not going to get much use, much traffic at all. So this is going to enhance the neighborhood. It's going to take down a project that's the gateway to Farmington Hills, and it's going to greatly enhance the area. So we would hope that you would approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Anyone else?
I just want to ask a question. Villas of Pebble Creek, is this the same Pebble Creek developers in the city of Southfield? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one, I officially close the public hearing. Thank you all for your patience and and your comments. We really appreciate that. We're all kind of scratching our head back here, trying to figure out a way. Bring it back to council. Does council have any questions? I know I do.
Well, we may have similar questions.
We may have a solution as well.
So we may have a solution as well. And first of all, in looking at this, I don't think this is the only option. And given that this particular parcel, we've been through how many public hearings and
I've known Scott since he was 12 and he had this problem.
yes. We finally came to, back in August of '22, we actually finally passed a plan. Now we have a different plan, which, by the way, I commend the proponent for reducing this. I like the plan better. I like the fact that the numbers have come down, but we were told when we were having those earlier discussions that we couldn't do that. But the
right man was in the room at the right time.
There's ways, multiple ways to look at solving problems. And from my perspective, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that we have established residents who have been here for years, and they're not in favor of this. The grade issues that the gentleman brought up, I do think those are extremely important for consideration. I will also say that probably the dire, huge increase in traffic is probably not going to be as bad as one might perceive, because we've seen other developments where that's happened. I also think you do need two ways in. Every house has to have two doors and for egress, so I like the idea of having a second way in. But when I look at this map that's in front of us, I would use some French curves in a drafting class and start moving those roads around a little bit. And with measuring them where 51 is, I think Mayor, you said that. If 51 could move, you could have an egress there. There are already 5 inlets and outlets already to this property. So this one shows 3, so we're closing 2 of those off. If we move 51 down around that curve a bit, or looped the north end of that closer to the detention pond and looped it back in, you could, without measuring it, actually utilize that space that's to the north and east on this map. You'd have the same number of houses.
Yeah, but you'd have one more with premium. 51 would move from an Inkster backyard to an interior, so it would have
an interior backyard. And if it was a problem to put a road out to Inkster at that point because you're creating a point of conflict too close to where the drive to the parking lot is shown, move that one further to the south. Now you've spaced them out more equally, and I think that they could end up with the same number of homes without having to have the connection into Cheswick.
Okay, Councilmember Knoll.
Okay, so
this one is kind of elegant, simple.
During my years on council, I've been the one person up here who's not necessarily a fan of our ordinance with the 2 ingress egresses. And I do understand public safety's need for it. Hey, I have to tell you, I live on a dead-end road, and we had a situation where our road was blocked the other day. I mean, you could not even you couldn't get around it. And people to the left of me were completely blocked in. They could not leave for about an hour. The police were out trying to resolve the situation, and they were stuck in their homes for about an hour while the police tried to help with this. So I have seen the need now for 2 ingress egresses. But as I said, I'm still not a fan of that ordinance because I think there's other options. And we went through this with the development at 8 in Newburgh recently with the street Goldsmith, We also went through this when Wooddale, the old Wooddale School got redeveloped, and I was the one person up here who was opposed to extending this, connecting the Stubbs Street, and I suggested a compromise, which was a gate, only for emergency vehicles, so that the residents would not be able to use it. So the residents had one ingress egress, and there was this, Stubbs Street was connected, but a gate was put up that only emergency vehicles could access. So that kind of solved that one. I think it was a fair compromise. I'm gonna bring it up again. I mentioned it earlier, but if it saves money. Rather than having to take out those trees and spend more money on pavement or concrete, bringing your street all the way out to Cheswick, if you were simply to connect right where the bend is, and you can't see it with my finger pointing, but the bend, if you connected it to that would be the northwest corner of that parking lot, and you put up a gate, so it's a gated, and you put it up on the parking lot side so that the residents within your enclave do not even see the gate. And then you put some beautiful flowering trees along that little drive or that stub street. They would not see the gate. It would just look like a pretty path, and it would be only available for emergency access vehicles. Or if you don't like putting it there, the other option is to put it a little bit further west where that emergency access road is all the way around the assisted living facility, connect it there. Same thing, the gate would be on the emergency access road, so your residents would never see the gate. You could line it with some beautiful flowering trees. Again, it would just look like a wide walking path. And your residents would know not to use it because obviously it leads to nowhere. So I'm just suggesting it again as an alternative. I think in the long run, it would save you a lot of money. You don't have to redo your layout. You can keep your layout as is. You save money in concrete probably and taking down trees. And our fire department probably won't like it as much because they have to deal with a gate. I get that, but I think it's a fair compromise to everyone. So that's my suggestion. And I do want to say, I am so happy with this development, though. Nice. We really do love that you're going with single-family homes as opposed to, it started as apartments / condos and townhouses, and so thank you for this. And we do appreciate that, and I don't want you to lose, I'm not trying to take away that 51st house. I'm trying to think of a compromise where you keep all your homes.
So, we proposed, I know nobody wants an access on Cheswick, and we proposed a gated 10-foot wide, don't lose all the trees, use it only in an emergency. It's a 90-degree turning radius, and the trucks make 90-degree. The recommendation to connect at various points there, I'm going to go one at a time. We have a fire template and a truck template that we must meet for engineering standards, and a couple of those options that would look very good on this cartoon do not work for your engineering standards. So we did try those gates. I do not want to open up to the backside. Residents do not want us to open up residential into residential. So tonight I'm being asked to open residential into commercial. There's an irony to that. I want to connect residential to residential with a gate that says you can never get through it unless there's a fire emergency on Cheswick. Now, planning and staff said, no, you can't do that. We want a full access. So I'm trying to be as compromising as possible, but I don't want to connect brand new high-end residential to a commercial use on the backside. You can't screen a 20-foot wide easement that would be required for the fire turning radius. So I will gate the Cheswick entrance. If you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 driveways on the other side of Inkster Road. So road alignment, which I don't control either, won't let me move my entrances back out to Inkster. I have to have sight distance between them or I have to line up. So I can't move you'll notice with the assisted living, the driveway lines up in both cases with driveways across the street. In our case, our driveway is far enough north that we are able to do it. We can't put another entrance, I don't believe, in terms of the engineering standards. Maybe Karen can, well, she's not here.
Well,
She left. They all left.
Councilmember Knoll graciously yielded to me just now. So we don't want to, first of all, if you apparently, and I don't know, because when I drove by there, I didn't see where this road would come in. There's no sign that says proposed road here, so I don't know. But if you were to put a gate there, it still would apparently, in order to be used, impact the trees. Okay, so that means either the tree has to come down or you don't put a gate there. Okay, so what we're proposing over here is looking at it is, go back to the plan, thank you, is where the parking lot is next to the east, to the south of 51 and to the south of 28 and to the south, the east of 19 or the east of 18, that there is already that road coming in from Inkster. It's a parking lot.
Yes.
I don't necessarily think you need to put a road in. I think you could just put a gate at the base of that parking lot that ties into the road.
Now, he'll lose parking spaces, which he's not interested in doing.
Well, then.
Well, it's
think-
not my, that's a different site plan.
But not
It's
much.
unified, yes.
Not much, not much. If we're talking about taking over 2 or 3 or 4 spaces.
That's not our proposal tonight. I hear you. We are willing to do a gated,
This
a
is a
10-foot,
gated.
a 10-foot wide access-only easement onto a residential street called Cheswick.
But that
For an enclave
necessitates
development.
knocking down a mature tree
It would
or
take
2.
10 feet of trees out, which is,
Okay, so there is a way to do this without taking down those trees, but it means sacrificing some parking.
it means opening ourselves up to a commercial development, which does not.
Only in an emergency that no one will see, because you're gonna landscape it beautifully. Because I know you.
Can't landscape a road. The road has to be there so they can drive vehicles through it.
But it's not open to the residents of your enclave.
No, but it's a visual opening to the back of a commercial operation. That is what I am opposed to. I don't mind opening up a residential development to a residential development on a residential street. I do not want to open up a residential development to our commercial. And I know that puts us all in a hard, difficult spot, but, we have a townhouse development with 94 units, which we use the entrance in through the townhouses to make the connection. If this does not, we want to withdraw our proposal and go back to what's approved if we cannot come to some limited access that gets us out into a residential area.
Yes, Dr. Bruce.
All right, so I'm against any kind of opening onto Cheswick. I've driven that road. It's a beautiful road. It's a great neighborhood. I'm not in favor of that. Here's where I get confused on this whole issue here with the roads requirements. Oxford and Trillium have one entrance in and out of that development, and they're probably at least twice this big in terms of the number of homes. And they empty out onto a 25-mile-an-hour, basically natural beauty road, both of those subdivisions together. And I'm in that subdivision at least once a week. And I've never been behind anybody else leaving that subdivision, turning either way. It's very rare. And again, they're twice the size onto a 25-mile-an-hour road. So how did they get that with one entrance with all those homes? And that was a PUD as well. So, and it hasn't been disruptive. It hasn't been a bad thing in that whole subdivision. Here we have 51 homes that are going to be very much lower than what regular homes would be. I guess I'm not seeing why there's a requirement. I get it for the ordinance, but again, we don't have to go along with the ordinance in this PUD. We can just say, just one road, entrance and exit. It's still smaller than Trillium and Oxford, which again, they have one entrance and exit there. I mean, just one access point. I guess I'm not seeing the need for two access points into this development.
We would support that. That would be that's exactly what we would like to do.
We don't like to, because sometimes we get booze and then that's really bad. I love applause, but you know.
And I agree, I don't like the idea of tying in that road into a parking lot, even if it is a gated thing. I just don't think that that's gonna look attractive. I'm not that crazy about that either. But I think this can be done with just the one exit onto Inkster Road. It's again, a major road. This is gonna be low use. I don't think it's gonna be an issue of safety, of fire trucks and police accessing the site. They do it in Trillium and Oxford if they need to. And again, there's at least twice this many homes in that area. And it's been just fine in the, 30 years that's been there. There's been no issues.
You also
Is that a
have
motion?
you also have you have a section of road as you come in, which is, you have a way around to the right and you have a way around to the left. So if there is a blockage, you can come around backwards. It is a circle. There are two ways around a circle, not just one. So it's not a dead end.
Not a dead end.
No, it's not.
Like my road.
Was that a motion?
That is a motion, but I think we need even a more specific motion
I think
here.
we have a motion.
So I would make the motion as stated that this, I'm sorry.
I think that there might be some site design issues or something here.
Yeah, I just wanted to hopefully help council out with your deliberation. So there's a couple of things. One, and we've heard it multiple times. Cheswick is a public street. It was designed as a public street. The site distance, the speed with which the design of the road as approved was designed according to city standards, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's a residential road. There is no reference of speed or site distance issues as part of the engineering review at all. If you read the review from your staff, they are recommending a couple of things. One is, and Jim, I'm sorry, I should know this, but I don't. Part of the engineering review was that there was a traffic study that was done in '21 that needed to be updated to reflect the new geometrics, correct?
Yes.
Okay, has that been done yet?
Yes, and those were the numbers I was using. So
Okay, so I mean, I'm not in the review of that stuff anymore, but, you know, certainly our city engineering will hopefully be in receipt of that. So from that perspective, that's a good thing. The gate on Cheswick, if that's an option that council is considering, I would steer you in a different direction. They're ugly, they're not very functional, grass pavers are not good, your fire department
Still
doesn't
takes
like
out
them.
trees.
Landscaping, this is a PUD, remember, this is a PUD. If council does choose to put an entrance on Cheswick, yes, it's beautiful landscaping, but you can require as part of the PUD a very extensive landscape augmentation to that entrance on Cheswick. And lighting, and whatever else council decides to try to implement there. I've heard safety of dropping our kids off. We're not going to be able to park there while they wait for the bus. That is not completely true. There is no parking, there are no traffic control orders that prevent parking or temporary standing on the road there while the parents wait to drop their kids off. In addition, again, it's PUD. Sidewalk could be required as part of the development. That's certainly something to consider. And what else can I offer to help out here? And even if we did have two entrances on Inkster, if people want to turn left onto Cheswick and go through the neighborhood to avoid traffic, that's what's going to happen, folks. It's a public street. So just some food for thought. Thank you.
Can I also
Yes,
finish
what
up
if we don't care, I guess is the question.
Well, you know, and here's the other thing is that when you move in next door to a piece, let's say vacant property, you always have to take the risk that that property is going to be developed as it's zoned, you know, and if you don't like that idea, then you buy the property or you don't move into that next to that vacant property. Here, the residents have lived next to this property and it was zoned a certain way for many, many, many years. And rezoning it under a PUD or, you know, putting together this PUD and changing something to me is kind of like changing the game in a way, and taking out those trees and putting in a stump street there, or a street, I should say. You know, that's disruptive to the way that entrance looks. It's a beautiful entrance, tree lined, and it's just, it looks really nice. So I have some concerns that way as well, in terms of all of a sudden, after all these years to that development, changing it up. And the residents, you know, obviously, when they bought there, weren't expecting that kind of thing to happen. But again, it comes back to the issue of theoretical limits and practical limits in terms of traffic here. And the fact is that we have bigger developments in this city that have one entrance and exit, and it has worked out just fine. And with this one, you can get in off of Inkster, and yes, you can go either way if there happens to be a blockage in the road. I don't think that Cheswick tie-in is needed. I'm not supportive of it, and I'm not supportive of there being just a gate there as well, because you're still taking out trees and disrupting the whole thing. I don't think, as much as I understand the plan of tying into that parking lot, I don't think that's going to look good for the development either. I like this development. I like how it's come along. I don't want to see us risking losing this and going back up to a 90-something plus homes thing, which I don't like at all. So I think, to me, the best answer is just that one entrance onto Inkster, which is a main road, and it can handle the traffic, and the sub can handle the traffic with one entrance. I just think that, to me, that just seems very clear.
Yeah, okay, so is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, Mr. Jopik, is that a sufficient motion?
Or do I have to read everything else on here?
There is a suggested motion.
Yeah, there is a recommended motion in there with some conditions that are mostly unrelated to what you're talking about here, but they're still important.
So I'll read that in. I'll read that into the record with, on top of the comments I just made. Now I can go ahead and read this. Is that correct? Or
Sure. I just want to note that if the motion is going to remove the entrance onto Cheswick, is that?
Yes.
Is it going to include any details as to what happens with the stub or anything there? Because that's
There
not.
is no stub.
Okay.
So if that's council's wish, there are some geometrics from a fire perspective where they may have to have access. So I think if you include that as part of the motion, I think you may want to inject some sort of fire and engineering design elements so that that gets addressed.
what, to the entrance off of Inkster? Is that what you're looking at?
That's correct. If there's a dead end there, I think we've talked about this before, there's a need to have an ability to maneuver emergency vehicles at that dead end. Am I wrong about that, Jim?
Yeah, fire's going to say they don't use reverse on their engines, and we'll have to create a big cul-de-sac or T-turnaround there and lose 2 or 3 units. There is, the retention pond is a joint agreement between the prior developer and the city and the neighborhood. If that road was able to be bent down, you may be able to create a T turnaround, but that would involve the city working with the developer and the homeowners association to let that road move down. There's a landscape easement between the high water mark and our property line, which has nothing in it but some rather ugly trees that were planted 30 years ago. So there's more property there without impacting that retention pond or any part of it outside of the fence line of it. But if we just decide not to make the connection, while we were asleep, the fire marshals took over the world, and they won't let us do what we would like to do, which is, there are many streets in Farmington that have more than 3 units on them. If you do a new street in Farmington, you have to be able to turn all the big equipment around. You can't have 3 houses that are serviced by a street. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that just means I'm getting old and it's time to get out of the business. So.
Okay, I'm going to call on myself. So unusual.
Can I acknowledge the mayor?
I am normally not like this, folks. I'm normally very kind to my council. That means that number 37, 38, 1, and 2. Can 37 and 38 be moved, making the pocket park a little smaller, and move those east, and move 1 and 2 west a touch, put a circle road there? It would give you plenty of room.
Right here. The only issue is now you have houses behind houses, and so you've got I mean, you're
And
literally,
leave 38 where it is, move 37 a little back, 1 a little west, and you can put a circle in there.
we can certainly look at it. If
I,
there's some flexibility between the city and the neighborhood to try and create in that landscape easement, which is not being maintained.
I hear them very flexible as long as you don't go out Cheswick. Is that what I'm hearing? Oh, okay. I think what we have in this room is a bunch of people that really want this development. And a bunch of people who are really thrilled with what you have done here. And a bunch of people who can't wait for you to get started. And one person who would finally like to sell this piece of property and get it off his hands. And a city council that really loves everything you've done, want to help you in every way possible, and wants to leave those trees in place however we need to do it. And in a major emergency, we could send a dump truck over there to break down where we were going to put that little stub street in and get into that subdivision and then fix it later on if we have to. I know we've got trucks. I've seen them. We've bought them. So I think there's just, now I don't know if that means we do a motion tonight, or if you need to go back and figure this out and come back real fast and let us know what other ordinances we need to deal with to get this done right now, so you can get a loan and put shovels in the ground.
I would like to make sure we're not going to.
How can we help you?
I would like to make, thank you. I'd like to make sure we're not going to lose units by accommodating fire and accommodating the neighbors and not making a Cheswick connection. And I appreciate what you're doing. We'd like to see if we can do it.
We don't want you to lose units. We don't want Cheswick. We want everybody happy. And we really want to get this development going. Because I don't know how much longer I can go up and down the stairs in my house.
And I think we're willing to compromise on the fire requirements. I mean, we have numerous streets that I'll call them very, very long stub streets where they're not connected to other streets. They're not, I don't know, just drive down 10 Mile, drive down 11 Mile. There's numerous streets, straight long streets that go in off of there and they
Farmington
don't
goes
connect
nowhere.
to
You can't get to
anything
downtown.
else. I mean, and they're wide. They're not even like my little narrow road. I mean, I would wonder, good question, Wooddale, when we required that gate to be put in because we didn't want to, it was our compromise, put in the gate and not connect that stub street. How many times has the fire department actually had to use that gate? I'm guessing not at all. So I think there's some willing to compromise here on the requirements for this very small infill. I mean, I understand if we were not a built-out city and we had major acreage with new developments going on, ideally, yes, you want to have that 2 egresses. But this is different. We are built out. We are doing small little infill developments here, and we just don't have the space in every circumstance to make this work. The costs of building right now are just crazy. Out of control with inflation and supply chain shortages and everything. And we have kind of put you through the ringer with what we've been asking for because we want to make sure it's an appropriate development for Farmington Hills and for the neighbors.
And
I think, we need to be willing to compromise a little bit here too on the fire requirements. There are only really 4 or 5 homes right here, the ones on the corner.
Okay. Randy? Dr. Bruce?
Yes. I mean, first off, I learned something new tonight. I did not know the fire trucks can't back up.
Well, they can back up.
They can back up.
Okay, so anyway, I'm being a little bit facetious there. If there were one of these homes on that little stubby road, it's not a long road. Couldn't the fire truck just, park right there? Their hoses can go quite a distance. So they can unroll those hoses all the way from the fire truck to the end of that street. I know they will go that long. And an EMS vehicle could get in there and pull into a driveway and back up and turn around. So we're only talking about a fire truck that's parking maybe 20, 30, 40 feet away from the target house. The hoses would reach to that house anyway. And again, I don't see, and I don't see
Yeah, they could also park on Cheswick.
They could park on Cheswick too,
And
yeah.
put a fire hydrant right
And
there.
just run people there.
So I guess I'm not still seeing the fire safety hazard here without that connection to Cheswick. So I would say, to me, I'm still not seeing a reason why we can't just approve this the way it is without any connection to Cheswick, and everything's good.
Dr. Massey?
I just want to make a couple of quick questions. Number one, fire department can easily get in there. When we didn't have fire hydrants, if you remember the fire that was in the back of, what was that,
That was
Normandy
bad,
Hills?
yeah.
Quaker.
They ran hoses for nearly, now they tag different engines because they need the additional pumping, but they ran hoses for almost a half a month.
Yep.
Secondly, they do back up. And in fact, it's one of the requirements to drive the vehicles. They have to learn to back it up, which firefighters don't always like that. The ordinance to connect stub streets and to what happened with the Wooddale, when that was taken down, that parcel, there was a road from Colony Park that was put in as to be connected. And so when they went to build that road, then our ordinance says to connect up those stub streets.
Stub street was
In
already
this particular situation, we're creating the stub street that we then have to connect up to. So I think that there's a, but I still, to your point, Mayor, I still think there's a way to bend that road around without losing any of those houses and get around that.
No, but his issue is
But
he
then-
can't connect out to Inkster because of sight lines. You
51.
can't have two entrances
Well,
that
I'm-
close together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
That won't meet standards.
So he'll lose actually
so
2
to be
units.
clear,
Yeah.
the bending of the road and connecting it is still with one entrance, even though I don't necessarily like just having one in and out. If Councilwoman Knoll's idea is not acceptable, which I think easily, and we may disagree, but I think that that gate, for what looks like on here, and I don't have any dimensions on here, out of that parking lot, that would easily connect in with a gate and the
I think a
appropriate.
truck could just run over the grass.
I just,
That-
I
Well,
can't get
they're
the,
gonna run over the grass if they have to. They will.
Yes, so I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
it won't meet the templates for turning radiuses. That's what our engineer said.
I'm sorry, it won't.
It
what?
will not, you can't, a template which tells you how much distance it takes to turn a truck. You can't come out of there and turn both
Take a
right
motion
and
for what it
left
is.
Take your motion.
with the fire truck, so they say that's not an adequate.
figure it out.
So if you came straight
All right, I'm ready.
west
Gary's
out of that
looking at me as
parking
the
lot,
engineer.
we get
saying,
back in order, I'll-
What are you doing
do
to
it.
me?
We're gonna just do a motion. Let's do a motion
Okay.
and move
All
on.
right.
Otherwise, I mean, we're gonna be here all night. So
Okay.
let's,
I will resolve that the application for approval of an amendment to PUD Plan 2 to 2021, including revised SP 59-5-2022 dated February 21st, 2023, and modified with the replacement of sheet 3, C3.0 with a new one dated April 10, 2023 is granted subject to the following conditions. One, the applicant shall post a cash deposit or irrevocable and automatically renewing letter of credit with the city in a form, manner, and amount acceptable to the city engineer and city attorney to ensure and guarantee completion of the improvements for the PUD according to a schedule approved by the city engineer. Two, any conditions and requirements stated the Planning Commission's April 20, 2023 motion recommending approval of the PUD plan and Giffords-Webster's review shall be complied with or addressed to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission or Planning and Community Development Department. Three, any conditions and requirements stated in the reviews of the city engineer and city fire marshal are complied with or addressed to the satisfaction of the city engineer and fire marshal.
Okay.
But I'm going to add to that, that there be no connection to Cheswick. Okay?
And no connection to, directly to, he can't enclave it if he's got to connect to Optalis.
and that we're not requiring a turnaround at the end of this short street.
Right, we're not requiring.
So notwithstanding the Giffords report.
Correct. I add that in. So number 4, public sanitary sewer service access needs shall be provided to 12 Mile Road to the satisfaction of the city engineer. And further resolved that the city attorney prepare the appropriate PUD agreement stipulating the final PUD approval conditions and authorizing the identified zoning deviations for city council consideration and final approval. Did I get everything in there? That we,
It sounded like you did, Randy.
okay, I think we're
Did we
good.
get it all?
right.
You know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
And you definitely got it, that this road doesn't have to be cul-de-saced.
Correct.
No cul-de-sac.
No stuff
Okay.
Added.
But you might have to put a fire hydrant there.
I support.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Bruce, seconded by Councilmember Bolaware. This is a roll call vote?
No.
No,
Regular vote.
this is straight up. Okay. I don't, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously with one absence. Now, here's where, no. This is where it's going to get difficult, because we have a staff that is just looking at us like we've done something crazy. So we are going to ask you guys to, in your professional capacities, to work with the developer as best you can to make sure that we can get this done with the directions we just gave you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Can I talk to? I'm Dr. Kamal Garg, and I live at 27784 Cheswick Drive. There are some problems I'm facing at my home. I have internet problems. I have I have Parkinson's disease. I was good to hear that 2023 is you have announced as a mental prepared mental awareness year. So I'm
Does this relate to this project?
no, this is not this for this project, but this is my personal. I live in.
Okay, we're going to put you in touch with staff, because you talked about internet problems and some other things.
Yes.
Okay, so can staff meet with this gentleman?
Yes.
Joe Valentine, our Assistant City Manager?
Right behind you.
We'll meet with you right now and find out what your issues are.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to our agenda. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. No problem. Next on the agenda is unfinished business, which is number 8, recommended approval of award of proposed for as-needed media buying and consulting services to Emerald Media for 1 year for up to $150,000 with option to renew, and this was postponed from 3/20/23 CMR 5-23-59. Okay, we are calling up the city manager. Do you want to introduce this, or do you want Ms. Nguyen to introduce
I
this?
will let Vicki Nguyen, our communications director, handle this one.
All right.
Good job
evening.
at budget, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank this body for considering the advertising strategy for the city. As we know, Farmington Hills currently does wonderfully in getting its word out about projects and services via its own channels like social media, emails, and website, and via the media. We have an opportunity to elevate the visibility of high-priority programs and initiatives with a targeted advertising strategy. As an example, some of our programs like Maker's Mark may be better utilized if a lot more citizens were aware. The city is also uniquely positioned with the Hawk, as an example, to be an attraction as a regional attraction. There are a number of programs also hosted by our first responders throughout the year that could also benefit from targeted marketing. Advertising can help the city, especially in the digital space, where 98% of households have cell phones and 80% of U.S. consumers subscribe to paid streaming video services. This tool would complement our current marketing efforts toward enhancing awareness of what this great city has to offer its citizens. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Well, I do have questions.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion first or no? You can ask questions first.
I'll ask questions first, because one of the questions, and the specific question, is this says media and consulting services. And during our budget session, the question that was raised, I think I might have even raised it, was, is this specifically for social media? You know, this is social media.
For digital?
It's time. but this says consulting services. We have a new director, so what are the consulting? Is there a consultant being requested here?
Yes, advertising buying is a specialty. It would be a buyer that would negotiate the rates on our behalf, get the best prices, value add, et cetera. So media buying is what the consultant would provide, and we went through the process of procurement to secure and vet some media buyers, yes.
So this $150,000 that's being asked for is not all for the costs of putting this media out there. We're paying somebody to tell us where this goes.
The majority of that would be, I think,
much?
as with a lot of, I don't have the details for the buying, but there is a percentage, like a lot of services, a percentage, but the majority of that would be to utilize for our buying, yes. And it's not,
I mean, we're raising up a staff, we're raising up a whole department for this. I'm a little uncomfortable with paying another consultant for doing this when we have a whole department.
none of the department members, including myself, are advertising buyers. So this is no different than contracting for floor sweeping, even though it may be a Department of Janitorial Services, as an example. Media buying is a specific skill set, and a lot of organizations do have media buyers that do negotiate rates with the salespersons of these media outlets, as an example.
And the other piece of it, as I recall our conversations during the budget session, is that there are metrics so that committing to this entire amount, we could do this in steps, get metrics, because we haven't done this before. So I kind of want to know that it's going to work.
I've done it before, and metrics are part of the digital strategy, which is why a lot of companies do favor it. You're able to get metrics after you complete a campaign. You can see the return on investment. You can see open click rates. You can see the return on the investment.
Okay.
Ms. Knoll?
Well, we've never done this before, and I also would like to have maybe a safeguard in here where we review the metrics after either a certain number of months and a certain number of spend. I mean, I see Snapchat, I see Facebook, YouTube. I'd like to be able to see the metrics of each of those and know, how many additional tickets have we sold? How many additional passports for the Hawk have we sold? What has been the ROI, the return on investment for this? Because we have never done this before. So I feel a little uncomfortable approving $150,000 without having, maybe we do half, maybe we do $75,000, and then at that point we review so that we can really see our return on investment and make sure that we're making money off of this. And then if it is, you know what, we may want to do more than another 75. We may want to do more if we see that, we sold out a performance at the Hawk because of this, or we sold an additional, 100 passports for the fitness center because of this, and we can show that we're making money, then we may want to do more. But I'd like to kind of do it in steps so that we can review the metrics before we commit $150,000.
Ms. Bolivar?
Yes, I know in our budget meeting that we had, we were going over this, and our finance director said that, I don't know where he got the numbers, but the information, but he said in the meeting that he was confident that that $150 would bring in threefold the amount that we were spending. So obviously, he had some information to make that particular point in the budget meeting. I know he's not here tonight, but I do recall that he said that, because that question was asked. I think, Mayor, did you ask the question? I'm not quite certain, but he did say he was.
If Ms. Knoll asked it or I did, but I don't know.
Yeah, but he said he was confident. So based upon his recommendation, his skills, and we're saying up to 150, I would imagine that you're being the communications director at some point before we spent that $50,000, that it's not working, then you would pull the plug on it. And in the interim, as we're going through the procedure of buying these targeted media buys, there will be some type of report that you would provide to our city manager.
Absolutely.
We're on, whatever, maybe it's possible that initially it may be slow, but as something is out there and it gains traction, then it's more successful. But I do recall what we were told in the budget session. So based upon that, if we can get threefold, and with the understanding that as we're buying these media buys, that we're watching and looking at it rather than coming, to council and spend $75,000. I think as part of your hire, we're hiring you for your skill set to advise us on if the ad buys are successful or not. So based upon that, I am going to vote yes for up to $150,000 in media ad buys
Is
tonight.
that a motion?
Well, yes, well, I can make the motion. I make a motion that, let's see, where are we? That we approve the award of proposal for a as-needed media buying and consultant services to Emerald Media for 1 year for up to $150,000 with option to review, and that's CMR 523-59.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bolivar, supported by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Bruce. The reason why, since nobody else has any questions, you need a consultant because you don't know what some announcer's Q score is, what the demographics of each individual channel or outlet that you're trying to target is, and the consultants know what all of those media rating numbers are. And I would like to see, and I know this can be easily provided, we're heading into a heavy season with registrations and everything else, and then fall. If we could see, after 4 months, what the spend has been and what the return on investment has been, because this is tracked by metrics, I think council would like to see that kind of report, and we can get that. So you can't do this kind of targeted media buy without consultants. It can't be done. Dr. Massey.
So with that, and that was part of my question, and I would encourage a friendly amendment to this motion that's out there, which would, we have to have a quarterly update so that we can start to get comfortable with what is a new concept.
So you are asking to amend the motion with an amendment that says quarterly updates are required to be given to city council with the metrics so we can determine if we should continue on with the spend.
As Councilwoman Knoll actually discussed, we may say, hey, this is wildly
Is
successful.
there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment? Mr. Attorney?
Yes, just wanted, for clarification's sake, this was with extensions, up to 5 one-year additional extensions. Would that quarterly reporting requirement apply to all renewal periods as well, just so we're clear as to what staff has to do
So I
here?
will, for clarification of my amendment, I'm not addressing the up to 5 extensions, because if we do this and we start seeing that it's working, then we don't need that. Staff can handle that. So I'm comfortable with that. And if it's not working, I want to be able to stop it.
So for the first year? Okay.
So, and before you call the question, I still don't have an answer what proportion of this is going for consulting and what proportion is a media buy.
Okay, well, Ms. Monaco, our brilliant purchaser, is here.
So the way the media buyer is bid out is they get a percentage of the buy. So if they're spending $7,000, In this case, they would get $700 to the media consultants. That's how they make their money. It's part of the buy. The other consultant piece of it is they're going to put us in line and work with us, as Mayor Barnett said, to pick the best outlets and teach us. And I think that the best part of a consultant in this case would be to educate the staff that's there on how to do this. So in the future, someday, we may not need a media consultant, a media buyer. It might be something staff could handle
In-house.
So this would be $15,000 for a consultant.
Yeah.
And the other,
It would be all
what's
buy.
left over, it goes to the actual media buy. And my only, I guess I have one other question, and that is this only going to be for things at the Hawk, or is this going to be pushing out information like the really great things that our police department is doing, or our fire department is doing, or whatever else is going on that never seem to get pushed out? Are we going to, is that going to be part of this?
It's the next 50, man.
Well, given the budget, we would look at the goals for the year upcoming, and primarily, you want to use advertising to encourage individuals to make a purchasing decision. So as it relates to, we're spending money, particularly around those areas where we're asking people to spend money with us. And then we also have opportunity for high-profile events with police, as an example, to push out some paid spend on digital so that people can see the outcomes of some of their events. Well, not the outcomes, but when we have opportunities for the public to come to an event. So high-profile events is the way I described it, and paid events, generally speaking.
Okay.
So if they're doing for example, if they did a annual Halloween trunk or treat, we would not need to pay for that, right? We have social media and we would push that out normally. But if they're doing a community-wide event where they want a lot of participation and we want to ensure the right audience attends the event, then we would put some spend behind that.
Okay, Councilmember Newland and then Councilmember Bolaware.
I was going to say, I agree. It's very important. We've never done this before. We need to do this. I just don't want us to get mixed up into the data. We're saying, well, we spent how much money? Well, how much money did we make? Because this is not only about making money, but it's also about changing lives. When we talked about this after budget, the next morning I saw an ad on TV for Westland Police doing public safety for bike helmets, just like ours did. If one more extra child went there, got a helmet, and has potentially saved their life, that is something you cannot measure.
Yes.
So I don't want us to get totally wrapped up into, well, we didn't increase, 40% more over the Hawk, because we don't know what this potentially will do. So,
If I may, I appreciate your bringing it up because it's not a quid pro quo. That is why, frankly, McDonald's still advertise. It is not it's an overtime as we do it kind of thing. So it won't necessarily, I just want to manage expectations.
Councilmember Bolaware.
That was what I was going to say.
Okay, so there's an amendment on the floor. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Amendment is added to the main amendment. Main motion, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It passes unanimously with one absence. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to no additions to the agenda, and we are at the end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Farmington Hills, have a great and healthy and safe Memorial Day next weekend, and we wish you the best, and a shout out to our troops that are serving overseas and all of our veterans that are here safely back home, and especially those who have paid the ultimate price and their families. We wish you all the best, and our condolences go out to those of you who are Gold Star families. Good night, Farmington Hills.
Good night.